Hey everyone, I'm Andy and welcome to another episode of Easy Tiki Drinks. And today on the channel, we're gonna start our deep dive into the world of one of our modern tiki bartenders, and that is Justin Wojslaw. So today, we're gonna be taking a look at a cocktail he made specifically for something that doesn't really have to do with tiki, but kind of. He did it for a recording studio. So today, we're gonna be taking a look at the Hi-Tide Boogie. Let's do this. So over the next couple weeks, we're gonna be taking a deep dive into some of the cocktails by a modern tiki bartender. That modern tiki bartender that I'm talking about is Justin Wojslaw. Now, he is featured in Minimalist Tiki, and I will leave a link in the comments below if you'd like to pick up your own copy. It's a great tiki book. But the cocktail that we're gonna be taking a look at today is actually not featured in Minimalist Tiki, and it's a cocktail that Justin designed in honor of something that's kind of related to tiki, but not really. It's a recording studio. So today we're gonna be taking a look at the Hi-Tide Boogie. We're gonna make the cocktail. I will kind of sip on it and I'll talk about Justin and I'll talk about basically where he got the inspiration for this cocktail from. So first, let's take a look at what we're gonna need to make this cocktail. First, we're gonna need Overproof Demerara Rum. Next up, we're gonna need Dawn Spices No. 2, Passionfruit Syrup, Cinnamon Syrup, Grapefruit Juice, and lime juice. So the Overproof Demerara Rum that I'm using is Plantation OFTD. The Dawn Spices No. 2, Passionfruit Syrup, and Cinnamon Syrup are all homemade. The Grapefruit Juice and lime juice are fresh squeezed. I'm gonna rearrange this real quick. There. Now, before I get into building this cocktail, I do want to go over a few substitutions or a few of what I'm working with here. So the first one is the Overproof Demerara Rum. Now, again, for those of you that know, Plantation OFTD is a blend of rums from multiple islands, so it is not just Demerara rum. However, that's what Minimalist Tiki would classify it as, so that's what I call it. If you want to build this cocktail with a substitution for Plantation OFTD, you can. You can use something like a Lemon Heart or a Hamilton 151. I will tell you, it will taste different. Both of those, A, are stronger, and B, have a distinct flavor profile that are similar to each other, but vastly different than the Plantation OFTD, which is unique in and of itself because it is a blend from multiple islands. But if you find that you like it better, awesome. The other thing I want to talk about is Dawn Spices No. 2. What is it? Well, it's 1-to-1 vanilla syrup and allspice dram. So I make my own because I make my own allspice dram. I don't make my own allspice dram yet, but it is something on my menu to kind of try. I make my own vanilla syrup, and then I buy St. Elizabeth's allspice dram. You can also buy it commercially available, like pre-made from BJ Reynolds, and if you want, I will leave an affiliate link down below if you want to pick up your own bottle. I believe they call it Tiki Spices, actually. All right, so let's build this. I'll sip on it. I'll talk about Justin. We'll talk about this cocktail and where he got the inspiration from. So first, we're gonna need an ounce of our lime juice. Next up, we're gonna need 3/4 of an ounce of our grapefruit juice. Now, I've gotten the question before, Andy, you say grapefruit juice. There are multiple different types of grapefruits, and you're right, there are. Typically, we're gonna see white, we're gonna see pink, and we're gonna see red. So which one to use? The traditional tiki classic recipes always call for white grapefruit. However, that's not always easily available, at least not fresh. It's a short season for white grapefruit, so if you can get it, I highly recommend you get it. Buy a bunch of them, juice them, freeze the juice if you want. You can also buy like bottled grapefruit juice. It's not the best, but it is decently close from Ocean Spray. I believe it's called pure white grapefruit juice. I think there's an Amazon link that I can leave below if you want to pick up your own bottle. So if you can't get white grapefruit, I highly recommend pink as the next option. Pink is a tad bit sweeter, but not nearly as sweet as the ruby red. So ruby red kind of last ditch effort, but if you can get pink, and you can't get white, then definitely go with pink. Next up, we're gonna need 3/4 ounce of our cinnamon syrup. We're gonna need 1/4 ounce of our Passionfruit Syrup. And then 1/4 ounce of our Dawn's Spices number 2. Luckily that didn't fall over. And last but not least, we're gonna need 1.5 ounces of our plantation OFTD. Now this is the actual rum that Justin called for in his recipe, so that's why I'm using it and trying to stick as close to his original recipe as possible. All right, we're gonna grab our other shaking tin. We're just gonna add a small scoop of ice. Pour this in. Give it a nice little whack and then a whip shake for about 5 to 8 seconds. You'll hear the ice start to kind of disappear, and that's going to chill and dilute the cocktail, which is what we want. Sounds about right. I'm gonna grab our Collins glass. Now Justin uses typically like a skinnier, maybe a slightly taller Collins glass, and I wish I had those. And in fact, if anybody has like a Collins glass that they love, that they'd love to recommend, please drop a comment below. I'd love to pick up a few new Collins glasses. But I'm gonna use my Everybody's Zombie glass instead. Just gonna open pour right in. And then we're just gonna top with fresh crushed ice, or pebble ice. All right, clean this up a little bit. Here we go. For a garnish, we're just gonna go with a mint sprig. Don't forget your straw. And there you have it, Justin Wojslaw's Hi-Tide Boogie. Let's give it a try. All right, so before I go into my tasting notes of this cocktail, I wanna talk a little bit about Justin. So Justin is out of Seattle, Washington, and the bar that he's currently working at is the Diller Room. So if you wanna go see him, he's part-time there. I know he does a couple nights a week. Definitely go check him out because he makes phenomenal cocktails. And honestly, he's just a great human being. He has gone above and beyond to help me out with these kind of like bartender spotlights. I reached out to him, not even knowing if he would respond, but he responded right away, and we've been talking over the last 2 months or so, answering any questions that I have, and he's just been a phenomenal resource to utilize. And I love spotlighting his cocktails, so I'm really excited for the next few weeks. Now, Justin's been bartending since about 2009, so that gives him about 13 years experience. However, he did at one point kind of like take a year off because he wanted to try his hand at barbering. I believe that's the word. He wanted to be a barber, like a professional barber. And actually, if you go over onto his YouTube page, onto his Instagram page, at Golden Era Tropics, or Tropicals, I'll leave a link in the comments below. If you scroll back far enough, you actually may see like some of the posts that he made when he was doing hair cutting and being a barber. Although in Justin's words, he's a way better bartender than he ever was a barber. So I think he's kind of decided to go away from that and go back to bartending. Justin also has an Etsy page under the same name as his Instagram page, where he puts out custom Mai Tai glasses and a few other things. He's done 2 runs of Mai Tai glasses. The first one has been sold out for a very long time. And then the second one is right now in pre-order. I've purchased one. The problem is I wanted it for these episodes, and unfortunately it's just not gonna go into production before then, so unfortunately I'm just not gonna be able to showcase it on the channel. But maybe the next one, who knows? So where did this cocktail come from? Well, first of all, during that B-roll of me pouring syrups and rums, you may have noticed a nice background track. So that background track comes to us from the Hula Girls, and it's known as An Evening at Tonga Lai. I happened to run into kind of the front man, the vocalist and the guitarist for the Hula Girls, Spike, the other day, a few weeks ago, at a meetup in New England. He was in town shooting a wedding. He also has a YouTube channel, Spike's Breezeway Cocktail Hour, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I don't know why you haven't. I mean, he is literally like the YouTube channel for classic tiki drinks. Where I focus more on like modern stuff, he is all about the classics. So I'll leave a link to his YouTube below as well. If you haven't checked him out, if you haven't subscribed to him, please go do so. He's a wonderful dude. And I asked him, hey, can I use one of your tracks? And the reason being, the Hula Girls are signed by Hi-Tide Records. Hi-Tide Records are the kind of idea, the kind of muse for this cocktail from Justin. Justin loves Hi-Tide Records and all the bands that they sign. They are kind of like a surf, rockabilly style recording studio, and they have a ton of big names within that genre underneath their recording label. The Hula Girls happens to be one of them. I happened to ask Spike, hey, can I use one of your tracks for my background? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. So I really appreciate it, Spike. Thank you so much. And the Hula Girls, awesome music, great background tracks. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But yeah, so that's where Justin came up with this cocktail. He loves Hi-Tide Records. So what he wanted to do was create a cocktail in honor of them so that he could put it out and then give them some of that kind of exposure. It's kind of like a win-win-win scenario. Justin gets to do something for something that he loves. The company, Hi-Tide Records, gets a little bit more exposure, and Justin's guests get a phenomenal cocktail. So let's talk about the flavor profile of this cocktail. It is a phenomenally balanced cocktail. We get the tartness from the grapefruit juice, the lime juice, and the passionfruit syrup. Now we only used a 1/4 ounce of that passionfruit syrup, but a 1/4 ounce goes a very long way. So always be careful when you're using passionfruit syrup. That tartness is rounded out by the cinnamon syrup and the Dawn Spices number 2. Now we only used a 1/4 ounce of the Dawn Spices number 2, but again, one of those ingredients is allspice strength, and it goes a very long way with a very little amount. So always have a deft hand when you're using allspice strand. And then that plantation OFTD is just adding a wonderful back note of that kind of burnt caramel from the Demerara, a touch of funk from the Jamaican rum in there, and then a really nice, well-rounded body from that Barbados rum. So yeah, there you have it. Justin Wojslaw's Hi-Tide Boogie. I want to thank Justin for all the information in the chats that he's given me and the ability to showcase some of his cocktails over the next few weeks. I want to thank Spike and the Hula Girls for allowing me to use their background track. It's a great track and fit perfectly with this. And I want to thank Hi-Tide Records for kind of bringing everything together and being the kind of focal point or the locus of all these things coming together. So anyway, that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Go over onto the channel, subscribe, click that little notification bell. Follow me over on Instagram and TikTok at EasyTikiDrinks. And until next time, take it easy.